Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let's continue implementing authentication feature and let's define the rest of composables under login, register, and toolbar. Create a new composable, let's call it form or login form. We need here the state and the event to be triggered and the method that's going to switch between the login form and the register form. Let's call it on register now click. Let's hoist another method that's going to be responsible for closing the dialog, and another method that's going to be triggered whenever the user has logged in, and the event that should be triggered, which is login success events. It has to be of type shared flow. We need to observe the states or the changes of login success events. Therefore, I'm going to use the launched effect as a dependency, the login success events. Whenever this key changes, we're going to call the method on logged in. If it's not null, and we're going to call on logged in. Pass as an argument the user. This is going to allow us to show, for example, the snack bar message only once after the user has been authenticated. This form consists of email text input and a password text input. Let's wrap everything within a colon, a comment, add the alert message. Now let's focus on the text field. It's going to be very simple. The value is email. Whenever the value changes, we're going to trigger the event login form event. The label is label, and leading icon is this particular icon. For the error or has email error, it's going to be from the state. And for the text error, it's going to be this error email or please provide a valid email. And the keyboard option, it is an email. With the same manner, we're going to do the password, the value from the state that's password, and the on value change, we're going to trigger the event on password change, and the rest is pretty straightforward. Whenever we click on the trail icon, we're going to trigger the event toggle password visible. Speaking of which, the only variable section under the text field, which is the trail icon. If is password visible, we're going to assign this particular icon. If it's not visible, we're going to assign this particular icon. Now for the visual transformation, as shown here by the suggestion of Android Studio, if is visible, going to do visual transformation none, which means that the characters will be visible. Otherwise, we'll set password visible transformation. And that's all we have for our text field. Let's add here a clickable text to switch between the login form and the register form. When we click on this particular text, we're going to switch to the register form. And for testing purposes, I would like to add here some semantics, content description. In order to do so, let's create a context. Content description register now button. And let's place here the close button as well as the login button. Let's wrap everything within a row. Let's set the color or the background color to secondary. Let's add here a spacing. And for the login button, it is a progress button. Is loading from the state is loading. Let's wrap the content width and put everything at the center horizontally. Let's add to this button, for testing purposes, semantics, content description button login. For the shape of this button, I'm gonna do, for example, small. For the colors of this button, basically the container color is gonna be primary and the foreground color is gonna be on primary, and it's gonna be disabled when the loading indicator appear. When the request is in progress, this button should be disabled. Whenever we click on this button, we're going to trigger the event, form event, login. We have a callback function on error. Whenever we have an error, we need to trigger the function or the event, set alert. Basically, we're going to show the animated alert telling the user that you have provided the wrong credentials. The message gets string text wrong credentials. And we have to set visible to true to animate basically the alert. We have the content color. Basically, it's going to show the text login. Now let's handle the animation showing the alert message. Delete this one. In Jetpack Compose, we have predefined animation, animated visibility. For the state and alert visible. That's why we have set here, whenever we have an error, we're going to change the state from false to true in order to trigger this animation. Inside the composable, it's very simple, going to wrap everything within a surface, and we need to have this background of this particular surface error. that we have defined in material theme. Within a surface, we need to define our message. Let's wrap everything within a row because we're going to show icon at the left corner, next to it a text. And for testing purposes, we're going to assign the content description. No such user found with the given credentials. Please try again. That's pretty much it for our login form. I'm going to create here a private composable. I'm going to call it preview wrapper. And the state of this preview wrapper is login state. Let's wrap the whole thing within Pocket Good theme, within a box. And let's use login form, state equals state. Let's open the preview. I'm going to delete this one. And I will provide here the default state, login form preview for the default state. It's a little bit huge. Let's minimize this. This is our form, and this is the default state. Now let's see if whenever we have an email error, it shows, please provide a valid email. Let's do for the password error. This is the preview for the password error. This is not interactive for the record. Let's do another preview showing the alert. You have to set alert visible to true. And for the text, invalid credentials. This is the alert. And for the loading state, to see if we have the progress indicator under the login or the progress button. You cannot see here actually the progress indicator shown, but we have the button as disabled, which is good. I'm going to leave it at this. We don't have to make an interactive preview for this. With the same manner, we're going to implement register form composable, the needed parameters, the state, the event. Whenever we click on login to switch to login form, we need here a context. And let's wrap everything within a colon. We're going to use here, as we have done previously in the login form, the animated visibility. The state of the visibility depends on the state of register state. For the composable, it's going to be the same thing. Surface, this should be visibility instead of state. And for the surface, if the alert type is success, we need to show success color, otherwise error color. With the same manner, we're going to define icon and the text that should be displayed. I'm going to copy this if statement. In this case, check circle. Otherwise, let's do just information for the error. For testing purposes, let's do, for example, the same value of the alert text. And for the tint, it's going to be on primary. That's pretty much it for the icon. For the text, it's basically the same thing as the login form. Here, nothing new. We're going to define 4 text fields, one for the first and last name, the email, the third for the password, and the fourth for the password confirmation. I'm going to provide the rest of the composables. Before the horizontal divider, we need to add clickable text button, allowing the user to switch back and forth between the login form and the register form. And finally, the 2 buttons to close the dialog, as well as the button to register. The first button, which is cancel or close dialog button. After spacer, let's add here the progress button. The only difference is the content description. We have assigned button register to be accessible within our end-to-end testing. Let's do here label register. And this is the content color of our text composable. It's basically the same thing. We're going to trigger the event, register event on registered, and we have to call the event set alert in order to show the user a success alert telling the user you have just been registered successfully. The other function that we have to provide is on error. With the same manner, we're going to show an alert of type error telling the user something wrong with the registration. It's going to show this particular message. With the same manner, let's try to create a composable or private composable. Let's name it register preview wrapper. This will allow us to define different previews. I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys the whole previews that I've prepared. It took me a while to complete this, but we have the list of our previews for different states. Let's switch back to the previews. This is the default state. Basically, this is our form or register form. Whenever we have a validation error for first and last name, for the name, just 3 characters, triggering this particular feedback message. For email, For the password, please provide a valid password, at least one symbol, one uppercase, 8 characters in total. I don't know. We have to make this consistent for the rest of the entire application. And password do not match. For the registration failed, this is basically the feedback message whenever there is an error under registration, and success states successfully registered. And for the loading states, you can see basically, I don't know if it's visible, but here just the beginning of the circular progress indicator shown, as well as the button is disabled. That's basically it for our register form. The last thing that we have to implement in our authentication feature presentation layer is the toolbar. From the Pocket Goods web version, Vue3 application, we can infer the list of methods and the events that should be triggered and handled in this toolbar event or in this toolbar section. I'm going to create here a new file. It's going to be sealed class toolbar event. We need an event to toggle on and off or to toggle back and forth from the register form to login and vice versa. Let's call it toggle form event. Another event from the previous application that's going to allow the user to close the modal, and another one to open the modal. If you do remember, under the user menu, whenever the user click on the logout button, we're going to trigger an event. Let's call it on logout. On logout, we'll take in parameter user ID. On logged out to be triggered when the user successfully logged out from the application, and on error whenever an error occurred during the logout process. In this toolbar, we need to handle the form state to allow the user to switch back and forth from different forms. By default, we're going to show the login form, and we need to control the visibility of the dialog. That's all for the toolbar state. Let's go ahead and create a view model or a dedicated view model for this toolbar composable. As usual, we need here the use cases as well as the dispatchers. Let's create here the state, and a good practice to use to store the job in a private variable. Let's define the entire events that should be triggered and implemented for this particular view model. To open the model, we have just to change the visibility of the model. The same for close modal. Let's implement on logout. First of all, we're going to cancel current job and assign a new one. Use cases, view model, scope, and launch. For the context, it is dispatchers input output. Let's surround the whole thing with try catch. Whenever we have an exception, we're going to just do on error. For the rest, it's very simple. Use the use cases and call logout. And we have to call the callback function on logged out. That's pretty much it. To toggle the form equal when, this is why I love Kotlin, because it's very intuitive. And for the other case, the opposite. And that's all for the implementation of toolbar view model. Now we are ready to implement the composable toolbar. Let's go ahead and create a new composable, call it toolbar. What we need here, basically the auth state. And we need again the toolbar state. We need the login state as well as the register state. Why, you may ask? Because in this toolbar, we're going to show the dialog containing the register form or the login form. And if you do remember, under the user menu, we need to control the states of the theme. Let's hoist this state. Let's add after login state, the register state. Now let's add the dedicated events, login, register, and toolbar. I'm going to hoist the methods on logged out, on login, user menu click, and on wishlist click, as well as on dark theme switch, and the event, login success events, which is a shared flow of type user. The toolbar is going to group everything together. We need to add here a context. Now we distinguish between two cases. The first one, if we have an authenticated user, and if we don't have an authenticated user. Whenever the authenticated user is null, otherwise, what we have to do. In this case, I'm going to add the login button to allow the user to open the modal or the dialog. I'm going to put everything in the center vertically. For testing purposes, I'm going to add here first of all, this whole thing should be clickable. Once clicking on this particular row, we're going to trigger the event open modal. In other words, going to show the dialog containing the login form or the register form. Let's add some semantics for testing purposes and to merge the two components as one single component. The first composable that we have to add here is the text, which is the first one. The other composable, which is an icon, and the content description, label login, for example. And for the tint, it's going to be on primary. Next, we have to do the dialog. We have already implemented the dialog under core UI. Is open, toolbar state, is modal visible. For the title, it's going to be a text if the form type, login form, string resource first, and the ID will be variable. For this particular case, we're going to do label login, else label register. And for the title, it's going to be medium. This is the title. For the header color, it's going to be primary. We're going to trigger the event on toolbar event and close modal. Now for the content, I'm going to wrap up everything within a box, as we have done basically in Vue3 application. This container should be animated from login form and register form. Let's customize enter animation. I'm going to add here fade in with the combination of slide in horizontally. For the exit animation, fade out and slide out horizontally. And it looks good to me. And inside the animated visibility, we're going to put our login form. With the same manner, the animated visibility for the register form, this will be visible when the form type is register form, and inside we need to put the register form, and the rest is self-explanatory. For the other case, when the user is authenticated, we will show the user menu. For the initials, we have used the string avatar that we have implemented under core UI. Let's add here the toolbar, and we have to provide the state. I'm going to cook an interactive preview, and I'm going to come back. Switch to register form. Let's do whatever we want here. Let's test the other case. Password, we don't care. Let's click on register. Welcome to our store. That's all. Let's leave it this, close the modal, and that's pretty much it. Let's close the preview. And that's all we have for the toolbar and the authentication presentation layer. I think that's gonna wrap up our video. For the next tutorial, we will implement the integration test for view models, toolbar view model, as well as Auth view model. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next tutorial. Happy coding!